Hello again, everyone. My name is Pally, and I'm an OG 2016 DBD nerd who mains Trapper and Bill, and I may or may not be currently having an affair with the Singularity, but don't judge me. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about the behavior problem. What is the behavior problem, you might ask? Well, the behavior problem is exactly what it sounds like. It's the issue of the developers of Dead by Daylight. Now, I want to start by saying that I personally love Dead by Daylight. I have put almost 14,000 hours into the game. I cast for multiple comp orgs in my free time, and I've created content centered around the game for the last 8 years. So I'll do my best to keep this constructive, but I won't be sugarcoating anything, because a lot of this comes fairly fresh after Behavior pretentiously asking the community to vote for them in the Steam Awards for the Labor of Love Award just a couple of months ago. Now, full disclaimer, I wasn't sure how to structure this video at first, but what I'm going to do here is a 5-point system where I list a concern and give a brief example or two to back it up. Some recent, some semi-recent, some ongoing, but there'll be things we're all pretty familiar with to an extent. And if you have any more that you feel may be important, feel free to drop a comment below. This is just stuff that sticks out to me personally. Now, starting with section 1, the question, does Behavior even play their own game? Is a question that has echoed throughout the entire DBD community for years. We've all asked this question at some point or another, and every time we do, it's usually for completely valid reasons. Behavior often makes decisions that make us question their understanding of the video game. You would expect the developers to know their game inside and out, but with Dead by Daylight and Behavior Interactive, that doesn't always appear to be true. Now, don't get me wrong, they don't always miss. A lot of people, for example, think the Freddy rework was a huge W. I'm one of those people. Not everyone likes it, but Freddy mains that I've spoken to in general at the very least think it's a step in the right direction. But then there's some things they do that make you wonder, if they actually know or play their game, how did they think this was a good idea? The first example I'd like to give you is the Skull Merchant, both the original release and the rework. A lot of people remember when the original Skull Merchant PTB dropped, looking at the patch notes and before even playing the killer, knowing that there would be serious issues. And the same applies when we went from the Chess Merchant to the small rework that came after. We looked at the patch notes, saw all the abilities and effects that she was given, and experienced players immediately knew that this was a very poorly thought out design for a killer. And this all led to Behavior essentially taking old Skull Mummy out back to the woodshed and shooting her in the back of the head, promising to rework her at the end of 2025. And again, it just made people ask, does Behavior even understand or play their own game? Because how could they look at this killer in both states that she was in and think this was a good design for the game? The next example is more recent, and I'm referring to the Twins rework. I say rework in quotations because what we ended up getting in the end was just the old Twins, but with quality of life fixes to make them feel less clunky, which is good, but the original idea was so incredibly egregious that I can't even go into detail on it. It's another one of those situations where we knew it would be a problem as soon as we looked at the patch notes, except this time they managed to create a killer that was stronger than Nurse, and that's all you really need to know. The less said about this, the better, but the fact that this was even an idea that made it as far as the PTB was very, very concerning, because no one who actually plays the game on any subsistence level would ever think this was a good idea. Moving on to section 2, Behavior tends to make changes that nobody really asks for, while at the same time not addressing things that people are actually voicing their concerns with. And one of the best examples of this is the Autohaven rework that I believe happened in 2023. Autohaven for a long time was considered one of the most balanced realms in the game. Wrecker's Yard was actually my favorite map for both sides, and to this day I think it's still one of my favorite maps, even though the balance isn't as even as it used to be. But this isn't an issue of balance. The issue here is they spent time and resources reworking realms and maps that weren't really getting any complaints, yet maps that are generally known to be problematic like Iria Crows, Badham Preschool, Garden of Joy, and Gideon's Meatpacking Plant remain largely untouched to this day. They've also since reworked and added new variations for Macmillan Estate that no one really asked for, and while some of them are good, they still haven't made any meaningful balance changes to the maps that are known to be problematic. My second example is the unnecessary assassination of the perk Wake Up. Wake Up was a perk that would reveal the location of the exit gates within a 128 meter range, show your teammates your aura while you're opening them, and give you a flat 25% speed bonus to opening the exit gates. In the 8.5 PTB, to coincide with the rework of Freddy, they also decided to give some attention to a couple of Quentin's perks as well, including Wake Up. Wake Up was giga-buffed from 25% speed opening the exit gates to 50% speed. And after some people voiced their concerns after the PTB, rather than just tone down the numbers to at least back to what they were, because it didn't really need to change, they changed the perk completely and made it a stackable bonus based on how many of the survivors were still alive, meaning to get full value out of the perk, you really need your entire team to survive. Essentially, they took a perk that was fine to begin with, giga-buffed it just to nerf it into the ground immediately after. This left a lot of us confused because of all the perks to nerf, why Wake Up? It wasn't a problematic or weak perk before, why not just revert it? Nobody asked for that buff and now the perk is basically dead. Now, Section 3 is a bit weird, because the optimistic side of me wants to believe it's not how it looks, but of course I'm talking about how behavior seemingly and blatantly lies in their patch notes. What do I mean by this? Well, over the years, have you ever noticed that behavior will say they fixed something in the patch notes just for that to straight up not be true? It's happened more than you probably realize, and I can give you some recent examples. The Spirit has had a bug for a while where when she's in phase, you can hear the sounds of her husk, which you shouldn't be able to hear in phase because Spirit is a very audio-oriented killer in terms of her tracking ability. This can make it very difficult to enjoy playing the character. This has been listed twice as fixed in 2 different sets of patch notes, 8.5 and 8.5.1, the latter being a bug fix patch. They've said twice that they have fixed it, and that's just outright not true. The other example, which is also very recent, is the crouch exploit, or the crouch tech. It is one of the most annoying things you can verse as a killer, and this allowed you to basically, as a survivor, counter a Billy's chainsaw or a Demogorgon shred, for example, simply by crouching in front of them as they use their power. It's hilariously easy to do, and it has been a talking point in the community for nearly a year, especially since the Hillbilly buff last year. In the patch notes for mid-chapter patch 8.5, it was listed as fixed. However, not only was it not fixed, it was actually made worse. Now you can crouch tech a Blight, you can crouch tech a Bubba. The crouch tech is not only not fixed, it's actually more effective as an exploit. Some larger creators have gone on record saying it's likely intentional, and if that's the case, that's really stupid. How is crouching really supposed to counter a chainsaw? That makes no sense. Either way, that doesn't matter. Not only did they say it was fixed when it wasn't, but they said it was fixed when it was actually more broken than it was. And it just makes you wonder if they even care. Now, Section 4 is the longest, and it's got some stuff I've already covered, but I promise it's for different reasons. For this section, I want to talk about the lack of quality assurance in Dead by Daylight. And I don't even know where to start with this, because it seems like every patch we get for the game is absolutely riddled with bugs. Many of them take months or even years to fix, if they ever get fixed at all. But that's not even the biggest issue. A far larger problem is that much of the time the bugs are right there staring at you in the face, blatantly obvious to the point where if you simply spawn in, you'll see the problem immediately. And for some reason, behavior continues to release patches like this. And if they have quality assurance, it's obviously not being used the way it should be. The first example of this is one that we're all familiar with, the original release of the Twins. The release of the Binding of Kin chapter left the game in one of the most buggy and broken states it has ever been in. There was so much stuff that was broken, it was impossible to even keep track of it all, and it's impossible for me to go over it all here. It was an update that was so hilariously broken that it's outright irresponsible that it got released the way it did. And speaking of the Twins, I'm pretty sure they're basically the anchor being of Dead by Daylight, because when they released the Twins Rework 4 years later, again, the game was left in a nearly unplayable state, especially with the rubber banding among other issues. These were more issues that were blatantly obvious, and they pushed the update anyway. It seems like whenever they do anything with the Twins, it seems like all the code for everything else in DBD goes specifically through that character because so many things break. The next example is very fresh and also very unfortunate, that being the Houndmaster. The Houndmaster is a killer that was released in the Doomed Course chapter in November 2024, and at the time of recording this, it's still the most recent chapter in the game. And to put it bluntly, this chapter had no business being released in the state it was in. The Houndmaster's power, even to this day, is still ridiculously broken and a buggy mess. Half the time, it doesn't work, to the point where sometimes the dog will just bug out and leave you without your power for the rest of the trial. It's a shame because the Houndmaster's design, the power, and the lore is fantastic. It was just released in an unfinished state, And we're over 2 months later and this killer is still a buggy mess, and the fact that they felt okay releasing this chapter in this state is inexcusable. Something else that's very disappointing is that they have resources that could help them with these problems. Of course, I'm talking about the Fog Whisperers and the consultants. We've been told by various Fog Whisperers, including Otsdarva himself, that behavior straight up does not listen to them. And I can't imagine it's much different with the consultants, although that's just speculation. And by no means am I saying that the consultants haven't made a difference, because we all know they have. But I also can't imagine the consultants, some of them being very experienced and knowledgeable players such as Hens, for example, not reporting this stuff to behavior if they were even able to test it at all. But again, that's just speculation. And to be honest, it's not like behavior doesn't know what they're doing, because they do. During the anniversary events when they used to have dev quotes on the loading screens, some of the quotes from the devs were joking about the amount of bugs in the game, which, let's be honest, it's not a good look. And these are things that would be acceptable in the first couple of years of a game's lifespan, but you need to understand, after this next anniversary, we will be in year 10 of Dead by Daylight. It came out in 2016. Double digits, and they're still making the same day one mistakes. Now, the final section here is going to be pretty brief, because there's not a lot to say, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the lack of QA on the developer side, and that is the fact that behavior just refuses to take some time and release a game health patch, which DBD is in desperate need of. Now, they claim to work on game health with every update, but even recent patches are filled with bugs, which makes that hard to believe. Personally, I find it concerning that we're almost in the 10th year of DBD's lifespan and we still face bugs that were common in the first year. That doesn't really scream good game health to me, and that's not even mentioning the ever-sensitive issue of balance, which also contributes to health, but that's another discussion entirely. Behavior needs to take a hard look at themselves, and I'm not suggesting that they're bad developers, because they aren't. But before DBD, their catalog mostly consisted of mediocre mobile ports of licensed games. Even their post-DBD releases struggle to find an audience, and it's not that their other games lacked potential. I genuinely enjoyed Death Garden, Meet Your Maker, and even Frank Stone, even with its mixed reception. And unfortunately, none of these games were really successful. At this point, behavior needs to realize that DBD is their only reliable hit. They need to prioritize the game's stability and health before the underlying code completely deteriorates, because my fear is that the real threat to DBD isn't the balance, it's not the perks, it's not the MMR, it's the increasing instability of the code with each update, which could ultimately lead to the game's death. This means that the biggest threat to DBD is behavior themselves. The sad truth is, at the end of the day, Behavior Interactive are victims of their own success. They have no reason to step up their game, do better, and give us their best, because we don't give them one. And I'm just as guilty of this as any one of you. I still buy the skins, I still buy the broken DLCs, I still play when patches break the game, and I will still do all these things because, for better or for worse, I love Dead by Daylight. On top of that, they have even less reason to up their game because, like it or not, there's no competition for them. No other game has come close, be it TCM, VHS, Evil Dead, Home Sweet Home, whatever, and the only one that really had a shot, let's be honest, was Friday the 13th, because it came out so early in DBD's life cycle, but that game got stuck in legal limbo for so long, and it eventually died. Which is unfortunate because, like it or not, competition brings out the absolute best in people. And I know, deep down, Behavior is capable of better things, and I guess I just wish they thought we were worth their best effort. In any case, that's it for this video. I'm trying something different here, so I hope you all enjoyed it. And again, just let me say, I love Dead by Daylight, and everything I've said here is out of respect. Let me know if you have any other examples in the comments below, because I probably could have gone on all day. And if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate the like. And if you think I'm worth a damn, clicking that subscribe button would be mighty kind of you. If you want to see me stream my love triangle with Trapper and Singularity live, you can catch me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/PallyLive. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Pally, and I will see you in the next one.